My friends, throughout history, it has always been a bad omen when soldiers from the Far East showed up in Ukraine. Honestly, I thought I'd seen everything with the North Korean versions of Harry Potter and Star Wars, but something that definitely wasn't on my bingo card just happened. The Democratic People's Republic of Korea is now officially at war with Ukraine. As you know, North Korea already supported Russia's war efforts by supplying it with millions of artillery shells. But the bromance between Kim Jong-Un and Putin has no limits. So North Korea is now offering its entire army to Russia. Private Kim, and Private Kim, davai, come with me. Especially since their collab was made official on the 28th of April by the Chief of Staff of the Russian Armed Forces.
Отдельно хочу отметить участие в освобождении приграничных районов Kurской Области военнослужащих Корейской Народно-Демократической Республики.
There's no more mystery. North Koreans are now effectively fighting against Ukraine. The ground forces of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea are estimated at nearly 1 million active personnel through a conscription system where all men are required to serve from the age of 17 until 30. And you hesitated to join the army because of a 3-year contract. Although North Korea maintains one of the world's largest armies, it has not engaged in ground combat for decades. And let's just say its baptism of fire in Ukraine didn't turn out like expected. Despite relatively heavy losses, North Korea decided to double down. More North Korean weapons and troops coming to support Russia. And Russian instructors are already training the next batch of North Korean soldiers. It's just a matter of time before they reach the front. The big question is, where are they going to be deployed? So in this video, we'll explore the entire story as to why and how thousands of North Korean troops suddenly appeared on the battlefield to fight with Russia against Ukraine. Before we continue, a quick word from today's sponsor, Odoo. In today's digital world, everybody knows that big dreams require a solid website. If you don't know where to start, I recommend Odoo's Website Builder. It's the tool you need to bring your online presence to the next level. It's fast, simple, and free for life if you only use the app. With Odoo, you can create a stunning and professional website in minutes. And what I especially like is how it's straightforward, so you don't even need to know how to code to get started. Everything starts with Odoo's powered artificial intelligence website configurator, where you simply write in words what you want. From there, make your website stand out by choosing from one of many themes that you can customize at will with easy-to-use tools. Then drag and drop highly customizable building blocks, add visual effects and animations for a modern look. With Odoo, you can also create beautiful e-commerce websites. With a few clicks only, you can design stunning and high-converting product pages. Whether you're an experienced entrepreneur or if you're just starting out, bring your website to the next level with Odoo. Not only is your first application free for life, but Odoo also offers a free custom domain for 1 year. Just click the link in the description below and revolutionize your online presence today. I don't know if you remember, but the first rumors of troops from the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, aka North Korea, fighting on the side with Russia actually started in August 2022. There was this article from Newsweek reporting, "Is North Korea sending 100,000 soldiers to fight against Ukraine?" At the time, I thought this idea was just crazy. In my mind, the only way Russia could have made use of North Koreans was as laborers, construction workers, or in support units. But history had other plans. Let's fast forward to 2024. On June 19th, Russia and the DPRK signed a treaty on comprehensive strategic partnership, which was ratified in December 2024. Let's F up Ukraine! Bet! On the 16th of October 2024, the Kyiv Post wrote, Ukrainian military intelligence claims Russia preparing 10,000 North Korean troops in Far East for deployment to Ukraine. Once again, what did the Russian army need North Koreans for? maybe to add much needed flavor to Russian cuisine. Just sprinkle that kimchi. But you can already guess the fine analysis of the mainstream media. Russia is grappling with significant manpower shortage on the front lines. The very next day, Zelensky made a public announcement saying how 10,000 North Korean troops could join Russians in Ukraine. So many questions. What does Russia need them if the Ministry of Defense can recruit 40,000 men per month? How is the Russian command going to coordinate attacks with these guys that don't speak Russian? How are they going to be effectively integrated into the Russian armed forces? We can also speculate as to what did North Korea get in exchange for its military assistance to Russia. Energy, extra food, new fighter aircraft, combat experience, maybe all of those. But as of late, according to South Korean intelligence, in exchange for sending troops and supplying weapons, the DPRK received from Russia a platform for launching spy satellites, drones, electronic warfare systems, and the Panzer air defense system. Before we continue, let's play a game. Can you recognize which one of these men is Korean? All three of them were Soviet soldiers during World War II. Which one of them smells like skincare products and kimchi? 3, 2, 1. If you answered number 1, you are wrong, because this was a trick question. None of them are Korean. All three are actually part of the Buryat ethnic group located in Siberia. As you can see, still to this day, thousands of Buryats, Yakuts, and other indigenous Siberians are currently fighting in the ranks of the Russian armed forces. So the plan for Russia was to embed the North Koreans into what they called a special Buryat battalion, and they thought nobody would notice. And this special Buryat battalion was to be attached to the 11th Airborne Brigade. From there, they were to be deployed in Kursk Oblast, part of which was still occupied by Ukraine. During this period, it was really difficult to know what was true from what was fake. On the 21st of October, some Russian soldiers decided to troll the Ukrainians by raising the North Korean flag on a waste heap in the Pokrovsk direction. There was this fake story of the first North Korean passport being captured, or this AI-edited video supposed to represent North Korean soldiers. Oh yeah, and at the same time, we learned a lot from the mainstream media. North Korean troops deserting frontline days after arrival. How convenient, they're already gone. Or how these soldiers were immediately hooked on prawn after accessing the internet for the very first time. Thank you, the Daily Mail, for your deep insights in geopolitics. Although I have little doubt as to what they actually Googled. A couple days before, on the 18th of October, the National Intelligence Service of South Korea reported that Russian Navy ships had transferred 1,500 North Korean special forces to Vladivostok for training. And then came the first images of the DPRK's contingent. The footage allegedly shows dozens of North Korean soldiers picking up Russian army gear in some barracks. Throughout this video, we can see about 100 soldiers, so about a company's worth of troops. At first sight, they seem young and fit, matching the description of them being part of special forces. Here, the author of the video said in his native Yakut, hence some allies have arrived in North Korea. But who knows, maybe he was also trolling. They were geolocated in this training ground in the Far East, 135 kilometers northwest of Vladivostok. Subsequently, on the 23rd of October, the US Department of Defense confirmed that it was actually 3,000 North Korean soldiers that were sent to Russia for training. Up until that point, there was no tangible information about the involvement of North Korean troops in the Ukraine war. However, since no joint military exercises ever happened between Russia and the DPRK, it led many analysts to grow suspicious of the sudden arrival of North Korean military personnel. But everything changed on the 5th of November when the Financial Times reported Ukrainian officials said on Monday that their forces had fired at North Korean soldiers in combat for the first time since their deployment by Russia to its western Kursk region. 100% they got into a firefight with Buryats and thought they were facing North Koreans. That same day, this video was released showing a squad of DPRK infantrymen training in some woods and learning basic Russian words. Very soon it became apparent that language problems would make it very difficult for the Russians to lead and train the North Koreans into battle. The same problem we already talked about in this video of foreign volunteers fighting for Russia. If you're interested, link in the description. One important aspect to take into consideration is how, unlike these foreign volunteers, the North Koreans were professional soldiers that arrived as part of an already existing command structure. Suddenly, in the following days, strange weapons appeared on the battlefield, like this North Korean Type 73 machine gun. This weapon was adopted by North Korea in 1973. It was a fusion between the designs of the Soviet PKM and the Czechoslovak VZ-52. Hence its similarity with the British brand light machine gun. When Russian soldiers started handling this Type 73, they were shocked by how noticeably heavy the machine gun was, even for them that were twice as big as their North Korean counterparts. The Russians also said it had an unusual design with very strange sighting devices. After looking at this and to standardize the entire equipment, it's possible that the Ministry of Defense simply equipped North Korean soldiers with Russian weapons. By the 10th of November, something big was about to happen. Ukrainian officials expect a massive offensive by 50,000 Russian and North Korean troops in the coming days. Expectations? Reality. While many already blamed Ukraine's shortcomings and setbacks in the Kursk region due to the intervention of the North Korean troops, we waited, and North Korean troops were still not seen on the battlefield. This Ukrainian soldier even told CNN that he has seen no sign of the 12,000 North Korean troops that, according to the Pentagon, had been sent to Kursk. And as you can see, we went from 1,500 North Korean troops to 12,000. A 10x difference, it's huge. But then something interesting came up. Something more substantial. A train filled with the North Korean 170mm M1989 Koksan self-propelled howitzers was spotted in the city of Krasnoyarsk in Siberia. The gun of the M1989 Koksan is mounted on an open-type turret on the T-54 or T-62 chassis. Its rate of fire does not exceed 1 or 2 shots per 5 minutes. But the powerful caliber and range of 40 to 60 kilometers compensates for the low rate of fire. Then came reports of North Korean 240mm M1991 multiple launch rocket systems. Okay, the North Koreans were not there just to train in Russia, something was brewing. A couple days later, Ukrainian ATGM and drone operators observed what seemed to have been a North Korean Pulse 4 M2018 6x6 ATGM combat vehicle. Although it is difficult to draw conclusions from the extremely low-quality footage, this armored vehicle's 3-axis design is something the Russians don't have in their inventory. So unlike what you could hear in the mainstream media, it wasn't just infantry or cannon fodder that the DPRK shipped to Russia. What's tricky is that during this time, Russia and North Korea both denied the deployment of the North Korean troops on the battlefield. The Russian command jokingly kept nicknaming them the combat Buryats. On the 4th of December 2024, Russia ratified the Treaty on Comprehensive Strategic Partnership. And 2 days later, Ukrainian soldiers could hear K-pop in the distance. But not the one they expected. According to Russian sources, the North Korean troops were not sent to the front just like that. First, they went through multiple weeks of training. After that, the DPRK's contingents held the third line, then moved to the second line. Then they were tested in fortifications laying on the first line, and only then were they sent to assault enemy positions. The baptism of fire of North Korean troops took place on December 6, when they attacked Ukrainian forces for the first time near the village of Plechava in Kursk Oblast. During this assault, they were supported by Russian soldiers of the 110th Marine Brigade. The footage allegedly showed North Korean soldiers evacuating the wounded after the capture of the village. Granted, they transported them in some sort of sleds, which the Russians don't do. So Ukrainian drone operators knew something was going on there. Hold on, just to be sure, let me zoom in a little bit more. I can definitely recognize Korean men from behind.
Hey yo, what the?
Was this assault successful? Well, here you can see the front line on the 5th of December and the evolution over the following days with the capture of Plechava. So in a way, we can say that the first test was a success. However, the real evidence came a couple days later on the 14th of December. This Ukrainian Telegram channel with beautiful Nordic-inspired symbols wrote the very poetic following description. More fragments with cross-eyed people in Kursk. So the drone operators made sure to zoom really close on the faces of these soldiers and noticed Asian traits. I mean, it must obviously be North Koreans, no doubt. as if the Russian army didn't have any Asians in its ranks. However, the Ukrainians then spotted something else. In this case, Ukrainian drone operators noticed a rare disposition of enemy forces, 4 teams of 2 men sitting in foxholes in close proximity. Russians don't do that. In this footage, probably from the same area, we see about 25 soldiers in a compact formation, grouped up in 3-man teams at the edge of a forest. Moments later, the soldiers deployed into battle. We can laugh and find all this ridiculous, outdated, but most NATO infantry forces would use similar tactics. Those were the tactics used during the Cold War. Then this mysterious unit went on the attack. In this enigmatic footage, we see a large group advancing in calm formation, almost like ants. I counted about 43 soldiers, so roughly a platoon-sized unit. The soldiers are separated by about 3 meters each, while pushing across open terrain over a distance of 500 meters. If you zoom in really close on these pixels, you can definitely smell the kimchi. Another unidentified infantry group was spotted near the first one. In this one, I counted about 30 soldiers. So in this sector, Ukraine recorded give or take 70 troops from the DPRK. So how do we know those are actually North Korean soldiers? The response from the Ukrainian side is the funniest thing I've ever heard. These can't be Russians, because Russians don't attack in such large infantry formations across open terrain. I present to you Schrödinger's Russian meat-wave attacks. They only exist in our hearts. The Washington Post interviewed 30-year-old Oleg from the 8th Special Forces Regiment. He said, when Russians assault our positions and experience losses, they retreat, but North Koreans just keep moving forward. Are you telling me Russians actually care about their manpower? Okay, jokes aside, where did this all happen? If we look at it on the map, it happened near Kremyanoye. The first DPRK column pushed in this direction. They departed from this tree line towards this one, while the smaller North Korean unit attacked from this direction against a parallel forest. Honestly, we don't know if those are the only units that attacked or if other ones also participated in the assault but were simply not detected. Then came the bees.
Fire all the drones now!
Countless FPV drones rained on these inexperienced North Korean troops. We can mention their agility, which certainly helped many of these riflemen avoid direct hits. But then came multiple waves of bomber drones, and then the Ukrainians unleashed their 40mm automatic grenade launchers. And if that wasn't enough, the North Koreans were also hit by cluster munitions. Wow, this is what we call a welcome party. All in all, I could visually confirm about 25 hits on North Korean soldiers. Ukrainian drone operators also made sure to zoom in on the faces of the frightened soldiers to show that they're indeed Asian. Honestly, I can't imagine how scary it must have been for these men. It's like taking soldiers from World War II and throwing them into modern warfare. According to sources from the ground, more than 200 North Korean soldiers attacked from several directions in separate detachments, with the aim of capturing one of the tree lines near Malaya Loknya. That also means the Ukrainians only managed to visually confirm the presence of 1/3 of the North Korean attack force. According to Ukraine's intelligence services, units of the DPRK army suffered significant losses. At least 30 soldiers were KIA or wounded. I mean, it's about 15%. It's not that bad, honestly. To prove their claims, the Ukrainians then took part in a morbid game, where they zoomed in on the faces of all the fallen North Korean soldiers. In one video, I counted 7 bodies and the 25 hits from the previous video. So we're close to the 30 casualties the Ukrainians talked about, plus some more due to various artillery strikes, so we can estimate between 50 to 100 casualties. Special Forces operator Oler that I mentioned before also said 400 to 500 North Korean troops launched an assault on Ukrainian positions, outnumbering the Ukrainians stationed there by at least 6 to 1. The battle lasted 8 hours until the Ukrainian side ran out of bullets and had to retreat.
Right.
We went from 200 North Koreans to 500. The Ukrainians also said that to prevent being captured, North Korean soldiers that were wounded and left behind would simply pull the pin of a grenade. Allegedly, they were given clear instructions not to be captured. Business Insider summarized this combat action as too early, too inexperienced. Essentially, their analysis is that the sly Russians took advantage of the inexperience of North Korean soldiers to throw them into battle without explaining them the intricacies of modern warfare. Hold on. According to the Business Insider's own reports, the Russians do the same to their own men. So, what's the deal? Anyway, was this North Korean assault successful? Here's the situation before, and that was the situation after. The Russians and their North Korean allies advanced 4 kilometers and mopped up an entire forest. You will also notice that the group that got targeted by the drones barely made any progress, whereas the second detachment was clearly much more successful. After the initial attack, its infantry squads quickly dispersed into the woods, and only then did they get targeted by the Ukrainians. The New York Times spoke to someone at the Pentagon, and that person said, North Koreans in Kursk are largely special operations troops trained for surgical strike missions. But the Russians have basically used them as foot soldiers. Remember this, okay? Remember this. Then they interviewed a Ukrainian commander called Andriy. He said DPRK forces operate in groups of 50 soldiers divided into squads of 5 to 8 men. This is something we could visually confirm in the previous videos. He also said that whenever soldiers were wounded, the attacking force would not retreat. Instead, they waited for replacements and then carried on the assault. He also said that once North Koreans secure a position, they don't start digging in to prepare its defense. They hand it over to Russian reinforcements coming from the rear, and then retreat to prepare for the next attack. So, Mrs. Pentagon, this is exactly what we can expect from special forces carrying out surgical strikes. Shortly after came reports of another combat action involving the DPRK, once again in Plechava, south of Suja. There was reported that a 100-strong Ukrainian garrison initially held out against 2 waves of around 150 North Koreans. Once again followed by the morbid filming of enemy fatalities up close. The drone operators seem to have been really looking for these guys because we could only see 5 enemy fatalities. Surprise, surprise, in some drone footage from this sector, only a couple dozen riflemen could be seen pushing into a wooden area. It seems multiple DPRK units went on the attack during that time because on that same day, another detachment took Ukrainian positions by storm east of Malaya Loknya. In the video, we can see about 3 squads running across open terrain. So once again, we face a platoon-sized unit of about 30 men. They were then struck by artillery, leaving about a dozen of their comrades behind. And on the map, we can see that the front line didn't change, so the attack was a failure. After that, FPV drones chased down the survivors and played with their targets by following them around trees.
Они типа очень маневренные и очень быстрые. Они очень быстро бегают, перемещаются, ну, их сложно словить, тем более дрон.
As part of the aftermath of this combat action, the following video shows a North Korean soldier telling a Chechen fighter about his recent encounter with drones. Using basic Russian, but mostly hand signs and sounds, he explains how he shot down one of the 4 drones flying overhead. And that's something we could witness in many of these drone strikes. We could see DPRK infantrymen firing at the drones. There was also this video of wounded North Korean soldiers in a hospital in the Kursk region after recent heavy fighting. But I thought they abandoned their own wounded. I don't understand. Some people claim over 100 DPRK personnel was in that hospital, although I could only visually confirm a dozen. The mainstream media took this opportunity to spin this entire story around. We went from 100 wounded to 100 KIA. Each new article topped the previous one. Overall, I estimated that no more than 500 North Korean soldiers, or about a battalion, participated in this series of attacks around the Suja salient. In the end, we have to return to what Andriy Chernak, the representative of the main intelligence directorate, said in early December. We know that 2,000 North Korean servicemen have been sent to the Marine Corps Brigade and the Airborne Division. That's essentially a regiment, or about 30 rifle platoons. What about the other 10,000 North Koreans? What were they doing? During this time, Ukraine needed a solid proof of North Korea's involvement in the war, most likely to gain sympathy from the West. A first claim of a captured North Korean soldier came in late December, but it was quickly debunked as a picture from 2022. So Ukraine literally went on the hunt for North Korean prisoners. That's how operators from Ukraine's 73rd Marine Special Operations Unit ambushed a North Korean squad and proceeded to collect data on enemy personnel. They even found a diary on one of the soldiers. Here are some samples of some of its entries. When you want to wish your friend a happy birthday, but instead of a party, you're holding an AK in a trench far from home, and the candles are replaced with 5.56 Ukrainian rounds. He also said the Russians tried to pass them as ethnic Tuvans, one of the other indigenous populations of Siberia like Buryats and the Yakuts. We can also see the impact drones had on this soldier and the tactics they used to counter them. Literally, one guy runs as a bait, and the two others shoot at it. Then these Ukrainian operators also cut some pieces of hair and took some cotton swabs for DNA testing to prove to everyone that they're indeed North Koreans. Imagine if the DNA results come back as Tuvan. Turns out Russia just trolled everyone, and they made their own Asian recruits pass as North Koreans. During this hunt, Ukrainian Spec Ops team also found documents on a North Korean officer. One of these documents was called Combat Experience and Lessons of the 94th Brigade. This is a Special Forces Brigade in the DPRK. The document emphasized the importance of breaking teams into smaller 2-3 member units to minimize combat losses from drone attacks and artillery fire. They're learning fast, but there was also something else. Due to a lack of knowledge of enemy tactics, when soldiers couldn't locate the enemy, some units and companies ran along roads in large numbers, and as a result, enemy forces hidden in buildings and basements launched attacks on the exposed flanks and rear, causing significant casualties. That could explain the video we analyzed from December, where we see North Korean infantrymen attack in column formation out in the open. Overall, that officer's document was very sensible, such as no combat action should proceed without reconnaissance. Our primary mission is concealment. Portable jammers should be used for electronic warfare, and so on. Among other items found on this officer is what appears to be a family portrait taken just before his departure. The message on it reads, "This will be a beautiful memory, August 15th, 2024, and the picture at the bottom right is labeled with my sister." A couple days later, around the 11th of January, Special Forces operators from Ukraine's 84th Tactical Group ambushed another DPRK detachment. This time they noticed that one of the North Korean soldiers was wounded. He had shrapnel in his legs and had lost consciousness. When the operators approached him, he woke up and tried to pull the pin of a grenade. But luckily for him and for everyone around, he did not succeed. The 5-man SSO team then proceeded to evacuate the POW and provide him with first aid. Around the same time, Ukrainian paratroopers managed to capture another of Kim Jong-un's soldiers. So that's how Ukraine managed to capture 2 North Korean soldiers. The first one was called Ri, and he was 26 years old. As you can see, he had a fractured jaw. In a lengthy interview, he explained his story. Ri first joined combat on the 5th of January. He explained how his assault detachment relied on Russian artillery support, but they fired beyond the target. And he said that led to unnecessary casualties among North Korean troops. During the following firefight, Ri got hit by multiple bullets and he lost consciousness. When he woke up, he tried to find his way back. Luckily, he ran into a group of North Korean soldiers that bandaged him. But that's when they got ambushed by a Baba Yaga bomber drone. It pinned down the entire group, and moments later, Ukrainian soldiers showed up aboard armored vehicles. Ri said, "There were 6 of us, and all 5 of them died." Ri then tried to walk back to friendly lines, but this time he got lost. And that's essentially how he got captured. The second North Korean soldier that was captured is 21-year-old Peg. He was injured at the leg. His unit initially trained for raids and sabotage missions in South Korea. Both of these prisoners entered the military at 17 years old, and both of them lived in the capital, Pyongyang, showing that they were part of a privileged class. They said that they arrived in Russia by train in November 2024, and not by ship like everyone was talking about in the media. And they were told that they would just stay in Russia for training. By mid-January, we can believe North Korean forces largely abandoned their large-scale infantry assaults, as they probably noticed they were both wasteful and unsustainable. Thus, it seems they shifted to smaller infiltration missions. And then, 2 weeks later, on the 30th of January, poof, abracadabra, magic, North Korean troops no longer seen on front lines fighting Ukraine. Nearly 10,000 soldiers, an entire division, gone, as if they were never there in the first place. What was the explanation? Kyiv claimed at the end of January that the North Korean troops had been withdrawn due to heavy losses. Always the same story. Always the same story. But still, it was weird. The North Koreans just appeared and then they were gone. Hear me out. Maybe, just maybe because the special forces shifted to more covert operations, which is actually what they were trained for. By late March 2025, South Korean intelligence believed North Korea sent 3,000 more soldiers to fight in Ukraine. It could be an entire fresh and new brigade that is about to reach the front line. Nope, no questions asked, it's because of heavy losses. Ukraine reports claim that 300 North Koreans had been KIA and another 2,700 were wounded. And while the North Koreans were gone from the battlefield, their casualty numbers still increased. At the end of April, Reuters reported that 600 North Koreans had been KIA and another 4,100 wounded. I fear that they're just making shit up. We can safely divide that number by 3 and we could be close to reality. Even then, the few reported combat actions actually involving North Koreans simply don't match such high casualty rates. So let's summarize North Korea's involvement in the Ukraine war up until that point. We know that the involvement of the 92nd and 94th Brigades of the DPRK Special Forces means that the total strength of the contingent is estimated at about 2,500 men, something that had also been confirmed by prisoner of war Ri. We also know they were attached to the Russian 22nd Motorized Rifle Regiment, the 810th Marine Brigade, as well as the 11th Airborne Brigade. However, what nobody talks about is how the North Korean Expeditionary Corps did not only consist of simple riflemen. While the special forces were assaulting Ukrainian positions, this footage was released of a Ukrainian drone strike against a Pulse 4 anti-tank missile system near Malaya Lokhnia. Another one was also struck the month before. Each one of these long-range ATGMs are crewed by 3 people. The Ukrainians also spotted a North Korean analog for the Tor air defense missile system, built on a wheeled base with a trailer. We can estimate 4 crew per short-range air defense system. How many such vehicles accompanied the DPRK's Expeditionary Corps? We could be looking at hundreds of personnel to operate them. However, North Korea's most substantial help to Russia came in the form of artillery. And it just makes sense. Why take time to train Russian soldiers to operate these foreign artillery pieces when you can directly import trained crews? It also solves many of the language problems. You only need translators to transfer orders from Russian artillery brigades to the batteries down below. It was reported that the only thing the Russians needed to train the North Koreans for was on how to operate FPV and reconnaissance drones. And according to some sources I talked to, the North Korean artillery crews had been in Kursk Oblast since August 2024. Same as for the crews inside the Pulse ATGMs. In early January, some Russian unit published this close-up of a North Korean Koksan self-propelled howitzer. But notice, they don't film the crews, it's just standing there. Such artillery pieces kept pouring into Russia. Actually, not just artillery units, but also tons of ammunition. Like these North Korean 122mm OF-472 shells for this D-74 cannon. Or even these 152mm rounds supplied to a Russian artillery crew. And I'm not done! The Russians also received 300mm KN-09 MRLS that can strike 200 kilometers into enemy lines. Budanov, the chief of Ukraine's main Directorate of Intelligence, said Russia received a total of 120 units of artillery and an additional 120 units of MRLS. 240! And there are hints that these howitzers are actually operated by North Korean crews. First of all, because we have no footage of Russian artillery crews using them, but there was also this story from mid-March. The Ukrainians published footage of a precision-guided cluster munition strike on 370mm M1989 Koksan self-propelled howitzers at once. The reports claimed that because this artillery battery had such a long range, the crew didn't bother camouflaging their installations. They didn't even add any nets. And on top of that, they parked in an open clearing where their tracks were visible. I doubt Russian artillery crews would make such a mistake 4 years into the war. Each of these 170mm Koksan self-propelled howitzers need at least 6 personnel to be operated, so a total of 720 artillerymen. Same thing for the 240mm MRLS. In that case, we could already stand at 1,500 people just to operate the artillery units, plus an equal number for command and control, logistics, and maintenance. We could stand at about 3,000 North Koreans just to take care of the artillery. To me, the only way to make sense of multiple thousands of North Korean soldiers in Russia is if there's more than just infantry. We simply don't have enough reports and visual confirmation that an entire division was active on the battlefield. Of course, this is just speculation, but in total we could be looking at 2,500 infantrymen from the special forces, plus a couple hundreds of men operating various armored vehicles. To that we can add nearly 3,000 personnel to take care of the artillery component. In that case, we can believe the DPRK's Expeditionary Corps consisted of at least 6,000 men. The only component missing would be North Korean tank crews. Maybe it's too complicated to coordinate combined arms attacks involving armored vehicles if the crews don't understand Russian. I mean, even when they speak Russian, it often turns into a shit show. On the 11th of February, Seoul said, "More North Korean weapons and troops coming to Russia. Boys, we're good for round 2. Honestly, this can only mean one thing. For Russia and North Korea, this experiment was a success. What can we expect from now on? Well, Ukrainian special forces continue picking off isolated North Korean squads, multiplying the casualties they have inflicted by a ratio of 5, but very soon, we may see well-equipped North Korean operators like these ones become the hunters. On the 24th of April, Russia showed its willingness to negotiate an end to the war in Ukraine by launching a KN-23 ballistic missile right on Kyiv. Vladimir, stop! 3 days later, on the 27th of April, Gerasimov, the chief of the General Staff of the Armed Forces, publicly mentioned the heroism of North Korean troops during the Battle of Kursk. Following this announcement, Kim Jong-Un announced North Korea's decision to enter the conflict based on Article 4 of the North Korea-Russia Treaty. Now that it was all official, multiple videos were released featuring DPRK military personnel at various Russian training grounds. In the following footage, we can see them train on how to administer first aid, how to handle anti-tank weapons to deal with enemy armored vehicles, and most importantly, how to destroy enemy drones. Obviously, they also practice assault tactics in urban areas, all the while coordinating combat actions with drones. And because this is the Ukraine war, they also learned how to navigate and clear trench networks. This Russian instructor revealed that the average age of soldiers from North Korea is 23 to 27 years old, and that they arrived already in excellent physical shape. As you can see, a new brotherhood was born. And now we're entering uncharted territory. At last, the big question is, where is the Russian Army Command going to deploy its North Korean soldiers? Some of them were spotted inside a truck somewhere in Russia. Although the location was not disclosed, the symbol on the truck gives us an important clue. It's the symbol of the Russian grouping operating in Kursk Oblast, north of Kharkiv. In the following weeks, we could see the DPRK's Expeditionary Corps see combat in Kharkiv Oblast, in sectors like Vovchansk and Liptsy. And why not, we could also possibly witness North Korean armored attacks, involving IFVs, but also tanks. Lots of tanks. That's all I have for you today. Let me know in the comment section below what you thought of my analysis. If you're new to this channel, make sure to like and subscribe. And if you want to support my work, make sure to check out my Patreon or PayPal. The links are in the description below.